Good morning, dear students. How are you all? I hope you all are fine. Students, today we'll read a very inspiring story about an American girl, Helen Keller, who lost her sight and hearing when she was just 19 months old. This text is from her biography, The Story of My Life. It's a very inspiring story and tells us how she overcame her disability and turns out to be a renowned author, lecturer, and a social reformer for the handicapped people. Let's learn more about the story. Okay. Helen Keller learns to speak. Helen Keller was born in 1880 in America, where she was a little more than a year old, and illness left her both blind and deaf. But she not only learned to read and speak, but also went to college. This text from her book, The Story of My Life, tells us how she got over some of her difficulties. This is the story of a girl. She was born in America and she was very more than a year old that she got sick. She felt sick, and this sickness made her blind and deaf. The story teaches us how she overcame all her disabilities and how she learned not only how to read and write, but she became a renowned author of her times. I cannot remember what happened during the first months after my illness. I only knew that I sat in my mother's lap or clung to her dress as she went about her work at home. My hands felt every object and noted every movement. In this way, I learnt many things. Now, the girl is saying she could not remember what happened. She only knew that she used to sit in her mother's lap and just touch every object and feel. She was not able to speak and she was not able to hear anything. She learnt many things just by feeling every object and noting every movement that was made in front of her. Soon I began to make crude signs. A shake of the head meant no, and a nod yes. Now, as she was not able to speak or she was not able to hear, if she wanted to say yes, she would nod her head, and if she wanted to say no, she would shake her head. इसी तरह से उसने थोड़े थोड़े साइंस करने शुरू कर दिए जिससे कि सामने वाला उसको समझ सके. Come, a pull meant a come. When she wanted to tell anyone to come, she would pull. And a push meant go. If I wanted bread, I would imitate the way we cut slices of bread and buttered them. Now, if she wanted bread, she would act as if she's cutting the slices of bread and buttering it, so that the other person understands that she wants bread. I do not remember when I first knew that I was different from other people, but I had noticed that my mother and my friends did not use signs as I did. She was a very small child. She did not know, she could not understand what was different between her and the other people. तब तक उसे पता नहीं चलता जब तक वो अपनी मदर को उसकी फ्रेंड्स के साथ बात करते हुए नहीं देखती. शी नोटिस्ड कि उसको तो साइंस like she had to make crude signs to make them understand what she wanted, but they did not make those signs. जब उसने ये difference note किया, then she realized that there was something different between her and the other people. They did not use signs as I did when they wanted anything done, but talked with their mouths. Sometimes I stood between two persons who were talking and touched their lips, but it did not work. This made me so angry at times that I kicked and screamed until I was tired. Now, Helen used to stand. If two people were talking, Helen used to stand in between them and touch their lips so that she could make out what they are speaking. But she was not able to, as she could not hear and she could not speak even. So she was very angry at times. उसको इतना गुस्सा आ जाता था कि she used to kick and scream. अपना गुस्सा निकालने के लिए वो कभी kick करती थी, कभी scream करती थी, but it did not work. कुछ भी करने से कोई फ़ायदा नहीं होता था. बस इतना होता था, she got tired. After kicking and screaming, she got tired and stopped, but nothing helped. The most important day in my all life was just before I turned 7. It was the day my teacher, Annie Mansfield Sullivan, came to me. Now, Helen says that the most important day of her life was when her teacher, Miss Sullivan, came to her life. It was a very important day for her. From the beginning, Miss Sullivan spoke to me as she would speak to any child who could hear. The only difference was that she wrote the words on my hand instead of speaking them. Now the teacher, she spoke to her as she would speak to any normal child. जैसे वो teacher किसी normal child से speak करती, वैसे ही वो उससे बातें करती थी. The only difference was instead of speaking, the teacher would write the words on her hands. If I did not know the words to speak my thoughts, now the teacher has written the words on her hand. अब उसको जब बोलना होता था, the teacher would give her the words, क्योंकि उसको तो words पता नहीं थे क्या उसने बोलने हैं. She could not hear even. So the teacher would write the words on her hands and give her the words to speak in reply. This went on for several years. The next important step was learning to read. As soon as I could spell a few words, my teacher gave me slips of cardboard. When she was able to spell a few words, the teacher gave her slips of cardboard. On those were printed words in raised letters. You know, children, those who are blind and deaf, there is a book which has raised letter. The printed letters are raised so that they can touch and feel the letters and understand what is written. I quickly learned what each printed word stood for. I then had to find the slips of cardboard and place them on the right object. Now there were objects, आप puzzles खेलते हैं ना, like you put the puzzle on the right place. She had to put the pieces of cardboard on the right object, which she was able to do. For example, the words doll and bed. I had to put the doll on the bed with the words is on and bed placed beside the doll. Thus, I made a sentence with the words. She could pick up the cardboards with raised letters and make sentences. The words were jumbled. She learned how to make sentences by putting the cardboard in the right place. I soon moved on to reading printed books in raised type or braille. What is a braille? A braille is a printing with raised round marks which blind people can read by touching. जो blind लोग होते हैं उनकी special books होती हैं which are called braille. braille में क्या होता है? Printed letters, printed और raised letters print होते हैं जिसे touch करके जो blind लोग होते हैं they are able to read. I always searched for the words I knew. I could not speak because I could not hear. She could not speak. She could understand what is written, but she could not speak because she could not hear. उसने कभी words सुने ही नहीं होते. So how could she speak? And so I would sit on my mother's lap all day long and feel the movements of her lips. I had forgotten what talking was and I had made many sounds. She made only different sounds because she did not know how to speak. She had not heard anyone speaking and she never knew about the words. So she would sit on her mother's lap, see the movement of her lips and try to make out what she was speaking. But there was one word I remembered from when I was a child. Water. I pronounced it wah wah. She had heard one word. She had understood, actually not heard, understood one word, water. And so she pronounced wah wah when she wanted water. Later, I had lessons from Miss Fuller. I shall never forget the surprise and delight I felt when I spoke my first whole sentence, "It is warm." Her next teacher was Miss Fuller, and Helen Keller was so happy and so surprised when she was able to speak the whole sentence, "It is warm," which was the first sentence she spoke, "It is warm." True, they were broken and stammering sounds, but they were human speech. There is such a lot of meaning in the small sentence. She could speak, though the sentence was not very perfect. There were stammering sounds and the words were broken, but still it was at least human speech. So this is a very inspiring story The girl had to face a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties she had to face because of her disability, of not able to hear or speak, but still she overcame all these difficulties, and a day came when she was able to learn how to speak and write also. Okay, children, so you have to read the story. Bye for now.